I'm Ryan Durbin from RD Ceramics, and I'm located in Southgate, Kentucky.
And I'm Becca Otis from Five Lines Pottery in Monroe, Washington. And welcome to Wheel Talk.
Today we were going to talk about motivation and getting us in the studio, or just motivation in general. I don't know how far we want to go with either side of it, whether it's, a lot of creatives maybe lack motivation to get in the studio, or they, get inspired by other people that get a lot of work done, whether it's like seeing social media and stuff like that, or I don't know, just having a long list of stuff to do and that motivates you. Some people, maybe. I don't know.
Or if something doesn't motivate you at all, like
right.
if you're not motivated ever.
Yeah. I think it's just a personality thing where some days you just need the recharge and you need to do nothing. I'm not that way. Yeah. My personality is I feel guilty if I'm not doing anything.
I do too.
So I feel like I could be doing more with my time, and it kind of eats away at me.
Yeah. My friend yesterday, or not yesterday, a couple days ago, we were talking about taking an entire day off, which I haven't done in a long time. And she was like, Becca, do you even know how to take a day off? Do you even know what to do? And I was like, no. I don't really. I think I do, but it would be tough for me. I don't know if I've ever in the past 5 years taken a day that I didn't do something with pottery. Oh no, that's a lie. I was on a cruise and I couldn't do anything.
Right. I was gonna say, didn't you just go on 2 vacations earlier this year?
I was working the entire time.
Within 14 days or something like that. You went on 2 vacations.
Oh yeah, no, it was insane. I went on these vacations. One of them was a work vacation. One of them was me and my friend just went to New York. And the other one was a cruise, and I was with my mom and my sister. So, but the cruise I couldn't do anything because I was gone, and there was no Wi-Fi. And everywhere else I'd be on my computer, doing things or researching things or, trying to figure out how to start a YouTube channel or whatever.
So do you feel like when you travel, you utilize that time because you keep that in your mind that because I'm going to be gone, I can utilize it to do some digital work or computer work that I usually don't have time to do and time to focus?
Yeah. I think that whenever I'm gone, or sometimes I go to, LA to visit my friend or whatever, and I use that to be oh, I'm going to upload every single piece that I have and try and sell it online. And then usually I fail. But yeah, there's always an alternative goal when I'm somewhere else to do something work-wise. I don't always succeed though. You have a much higher motivation motivational drive than I do. I think part of that has to do with the fact that I do this every day all day. Yeah. And you still have the oh my God, I love clay.
Hustle and stuff.
Yeah, you love clay, which is great. I think clay.
I don't know, it's starting to. I feel like I definitely overcommit and say yes a lot. So, I think there's always going to be the motivation to get into the studio because I am so overcommitted on a bunch of different things. And I think that also helps push the motivation because.
Oh yeah, overcommitting is good. It's not, but it is.
And then I'm one of those that if I have a bunch of stuff in my inbox for emails, I'll leave them on red until I address them. I'm not somebody that lets the thing fill up. I need to check things off the list.
Yeah.
And that part of my motivation is to be filling out to-do lists and crossing things off. I feel like I'm good at that. I don't know if I always put a lot of the forethought into should I be prioritizing these things that are on the list because it seems like sometimes I could lower those on the priority list and be okay with letting them not be checked off.
Oh, right. Yeah, I know. I'm a big list maker as well. I'm not a big list finisher. I I like write the list and I like have this insane list and then I'm like, okay. But it does help me to like get it all out, and I learned that from a past job actually. I used to remember everything and now I don't remember anything. And so I have to write it down or else I'll forget everything. And also I like if I don't have that list, then I'm hopeless. I have like 7 different of the same lists in my studio right now. Because I have.
Are they like 4 in different formats where you like write one on your notes of your phone or reminders, and then you have like physical lists, and then you have like a whiteboard list that you can like erase.
Yeah, I have like a one on my phone, one on a notepad, a graph notepad. It has to be graph paper, and then another one that I wrote down when I was at the wholesalers, and another one that I wrote down when I was at a different wholesalers, because like I have 5 different wholesale orders right now that I got all at once, so I'm trying to get them done, and it's just been so tough. And actually, in the last 2 weeks, I've had no motivation at all, and then I started taking zinc and magnesium and caffeine pills, and now I'm doing fine.
So do the caffeine pills help with the motivation, or do they just allow you to push through your tiredness?
It allows me to push through the tiredness. And I don't take them every day, and I always take them on like a very full stomach. I don't drink coffee or drink tea. So there's no caffeine that goes into my body at all. And, you know, in the past couple of years, I've like, you know, if I'm having a really tough day, I'll like go get a Red Bull, which is so bad. And I was like, I'm not doing Red Bull anymore. So, because that's like, you know, those are those nights where you're like, shoot.
Drink.
Yeah.
Drinker.
I'm like, well, I started drinking Red Bulls because it was literally the only thing that got me over the pass when I go to my shows on Friday morning, because I leave at 6 a.m. and I have to drive 75 miles. And so it was the only thing that got me through the pass without falling asleep. Because I'll like, I'll start to get drowsy, and then I'll have to pull off and take a nap and then keep going. So that's why I started doing Red Bulls. And now I've switched to caffeine pills. They're healthier for you. Because they don't have the added sugar or anything like that. So, but in no way am I addicted. In no way.
Yeah.
I've had like 10 total in the past 5 weeks.
So is it like one pill replaces like a cup of coffee on average? Okay.
Yeah, I think, or maybe 2 cups. It's 200 milligrams. Milliliters? Okay. Milligrams.
Interesting.
So, yeah, but that's actually been helping, and I think it was the magnesium and the zinc. So obviously, I'd like to not take caffeine, but So that's my motivation.
Yeah, I think my motivation is more. I don't know. It's more long term. So I'm always like, I'm all about the long term process, and I know it's a marathon, so I'm gonna get to full time someday, and that's my motivation. That I want to put in as much time as I can outside of work to build those skills and build the efficiencies in the business, so that when I do need to rely on the income and like how to handle like a big order that comes in, or, you know, if I'm at a show and I sell like this past weekend, I sold 2 stacks of sets of 4 bowls. Like, do I have a backstock of bowls ready?
Right.
In preparation for those selling. And I think like staying motivated to keep making work and keeping ahead of the game, so that I'm not drowning in, you know, not having enough stock. I have way too much like backstock. And I don't know if that's a glaring issue, that I spend too much time making, and I should take, you know, even 20% of the time that I'm making to actually focus on selling it more.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like my sweet spot of like what I enjoy doing. So,
Right. I think that you like touched on a really important note. First off, I want to say that your motivation is completely baffling to me. Like, I look at your Instagram stories and I'm like, oh my goodness, how does he go down there every day? And then I remember that I used to be like that. But it's it's amazing. Like, I used to have a teacher that said that if you do what you like, your art or whatever, at least 2 hours a night, it'll become a habit. And I feel like you're in that stage where it's just like a habit now. Like, oh, hey, work's done.
yeah.
Get some dinner, go downstairs. Like, that's it.
That's a little deceiving. It's not every night. Not anymore.
Whatever.
And
Not every night.
No, it.
Are you lying to us, Ryan?
No, it's not. No, every day that I do my stories and I show like what I did, I was in the studio that night, but
Yeah.
like on average, I'm not really in the studio that much on weekends,
Right.
unless it's like in the winter.
I don't count weekends for you. I think it's impressive that you do it every day in the week.
Oh, okay. Then I mean, it's pretty much every day. Then if I mean Mondays I'm teaching and stuff, so and then Mondays in the future I'll be doing teaching for right after work, and then we'll be doing podcast stuff. So like these kind of things are gonna thin out my time. There's only so many hours in the day after work outside of the 9 to 5 that are already dedicated, and then it's like, what do I do with those hours? So some people like to just sit around and watch Netflix, and some people like to make pots or do whatever, you know?
Yeah, I think that also it is easier to get motivated if you have continuous projects. You know, like right now I'm working on this wholesale order. You always have something going. So, you know, you're throwing something one night, you have to trim it the next, you have to glaze it, like you have to biscuit, you have to glaze it. You know, I think that's what's nice about pottery is that it keeps you like kind of moving forward. There's no like stop and go. It's like if you are continuously making something, if you're throwing a little bit a day, you're gonna have to work on that the next day. Like no question.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
And that is, I think it's a natural motivator to get us to kind of like move along.
Right.
Which you do really well. You know.
Yeah. And it could be as simple as like, hey, I don't have any more shelf space. Like, I need to do something to free up shelf space. So that can motivate you to clear off shelf space, whether it's loading a bisque kiln or starting to glaze stuff because you have no more table space or shelf space to store any more pots. I've learned that having enough shelving is important, and I've got like 4 shelving units. It's crazy. Oh man.
Yeah, it's insane. I'm
just waiting for one day where a whole shelf just collapses, and I'm like, oh shit, that was coming.
God. So my most motivating moment in life was when I lost like every single piece of pottery that I had. My like very first show at Leavenworth. It was an outdoor show. I didn't have enough weights, and they told me, they were like, you don't have enough weights, and here you can borrow some of ours. But then I came back and my booth had like flown off to another vendor, and it wasn't like a crappy booth. It was like a Costco like canopy, you know. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad, and it flew away, and then all of my pots crashed down, and that was probably the most motivated I've ever been in my entire life, because I lost 90% of my inventory, and I like drove home, and it was Mother's Day, and I was like crying, and that whole week I had a kiln every single night running, and came back with the same amount of pieces that I had started with. They weren't great, but I miss those days when I had enough energy to do that. You know?
That quick turnaround time? Where you just sit and crank out work for hours on end kind of thing?
Oh yeah, and I was up until like 2 a.m. waiting, because that was back in the day when my kiln was on my front porch and I didn't have a controller. No. I didn't have a digital controller, so I was like, and it, yeah, and I mean, I like remember sitting on the floor on my front porch, waiting for the cone to drop, and then I'd have to prop it back up and wait 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like 2 in the morning. It's terrible.
I've started some kilns at like 4 in the morning when the cats wake me up, but that's about as. Then I go to the couch for an hour and a half until I need to turn it back up and do that.
Yeah.
But I'll probably do that in the morning actually. So
I can't do that anymore. Well, I can, but I don't like to.
Well, the thing is, so Autumn, our youngest cat, just meows like crazy. 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the morning on a daily basis. Rachel and I switch off. Usually I get her downstairs and put her in the bathroom about 80% of the days that happens. And we basically just put her in the bathroom with her feeder for whatever time until 6 o'clock when she eats. And then we let her out when we get up. And, yeah.
Can you get like a meow collar for that?
Well, actually, it's less that she just meows. She just jumps on stuff. And it's like annoying. And she'll like knock stuff off tables and all that in the morning. That's too early. So, yeah. So that's the only times I get up that early to start kilns anymore. But, so one more, like do you think seeing other people's work on social motivates you at all or has any effect on your motivation? No, not for you.
I would say seeing other people's work on social media has the exact opposite effect. I think that I'm like secretly a super jealous person. And I just
by work,
I don't know. I'm just like.
Does that include seeing what they got done production wise or their finished work or any of that?
I think what the problem is that I'm like, dang it, they did so much. And here I am like not doing that much because I'm like a secret busy worker. Like you, kind of, but it looks like I get a lot done, but I feel like I don't.
I think the problem is I just document mine a lot more than you do. You're in the studio all day, every day, but you don't document it as much as I do. I always try to make an effort at the end of the night before I sign off to show what I got done. Kind of as documentation for myself, but also I like to show people like that I was in the studio doing something. I don't know. It's kind of like for my own personal thing, and then I want to show people like the work in the amount of time I'm in the studio to have the results of like the amount of work I produce.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I don't know, maybe it's my like self-esteem that gets me because I also am one of those people that's like go, 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 go. Like I have such high expectations for myself and I don't reach them any day. Like I used to write a list of what I wanted to get done every single day. I don't know if I've ever actually succeeded.
But are those realistic, or do you put them as like stretch goals to motivate you, knowing that you're not going to reach it?
I'm for sure a stretch goaler, but they're within realism. What's hard right now is that there's like some days that I don't get anything done because there's like 15 people that come into the studio and they buy stuff and they, or they are, like messing up my time, but not really. It's good. It's good to interact with people. It's just a totally different switch than being down in your basement and like how it used to be being down in my basement. Nobody bothered me. Like headphones in, podcasts on, like just going,
Exactly.
And now it's like no headphones. I have, plenty of people coming in and out. I have students now, and also I have to worry about their work more than my work almost. Like I value my students' work way more than not way more than I value mine, but it takes top priority because, I'm running a business for them. So that's a lot of it, and I feel like it's almost taken a year to kind of get a groove going so that I can accept what's getting done during the day. Yeah.
But does it give you more, I don't know. I mean, would it help the self-esteem if you checked things off list? Like what if you scaled back your expectations like 20% and you were able to check that off a list? Would that feel more accomplished to you in a day?
Maybe.
So maybe you just it's become an assumption now that there will be distractions. So 30% of my day is going to be distracted. Like, whether I assume that there's nobody coming in the studio and it's just a typical Wednesday or whatever, maybe you just assume and you build in that 30% expectation that you're going to be distracted like 3 hours of the day or whatever.
Totally. Yeah, I think that, and I actually haven't been making lists as much. You know, I think what helps me is long-term lists. So, like, in timelines, when people give you, like, a custom order and they're like, anytime. You're like, great, okay. Yeah. So you don't want it ever. And
so by long term, are you talking about like 2 months? Are you talking about like 2 weeks? Are you talking like, 6 months?
When you get like a wholesale order and you're like, and you give yourself a 30-day time frame, right? So my goal is to make 150 planters and 89 beer mugs by the end of the month. Like, that's a goal. And if I get a little bit of that done every day, I'm like closer to achieving that goal. I've done this long enough to know that if I get, like, if I bisque 75, 85 pinch pots tonight, I can have them out by Friday, if I really work hard. And so I think it's more like knowing your time frames and making long-term goals and being like that's what's been helping me recently. Because it used to be short-term goals were good, like daily goals, and now it's almost like weekly, monthly goals.
Right.
Like, what can I get done this
you always
week?
have a weekly goal to have enough stock for your show at Leavenworth every weekend. Because that's a realistic, you have that every weekend. You have to get a certain amount of stock. Like, that doesn't change week to week.
Right. It doesn't change week to week, but it is changing on what I'm accepting as, like, new stock. I have significantly less stock up in Leavenworth this year because I'm trying to make sure that I even out my priorities. I don't want to burn myself out. I want to make sure that I have enough stuff to sell. But if I don't make enough stuff to sell that week, I'm not going to beat myself up, because at the end of the day, Leavenworth is an extra, right? That show on the weekend is an extra. It's not the main, where it used to be the main goal. And now the shop is the main goal. So.
Okay. And you don't see, you're no longer in the camp that if you do not get inventory made to be sold that will sell or has a good potential of selling, you don't feel as guilty about missing that business opportunity to have stock that is going to make you money.
I'm trying not to feel as guilty.
Okay.
Trying is the operative word.
I mean, do you so you get checks every week. Do you get itemized things about what sells, or do you have to keep track of that yourself?
I keep track of that, and no, I don't keep track of it. What I do, I'm like, it's so funny. My friend was like, "You're so high tech, and you have a freaking notebook." And so I have like a leather notebook, and all I do is put in the amount that I sold it for. So, like, the dollar amount. And then I just do a list of the dollar amount, and I add those up to make sure that my check is correct at the end of the week. And I don't put the product down. I tried that once. I have so many different items, and it's so hard to keep track. And a lot of the painters do that, but I am pretty good now. If I see a total, I have a really good memory too. If I see a total, I'm like, oh yeah, that was this, that was this. Like, that was, like, if I see 520s, I'm like, oh, those are all garden stakes. I know what they add up to.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
I think I have that same kind of thing. Like, nothing shares the exact same price.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I get super detailed about my stuff, but also I probably don't sell. You sell a lot of volume on the weekends, I'm guessing. I mean, how many pieces on average do you sell every weekend? Is it like 60, 70 pieces?
I don't know. I mean... Yeah, probably. Like, I sell one of my biggest sellers this year.
If you're talking about pinch pots and garden stakes, you're probably selling like 100 pieces or something like that.
Yeah, like, pinch pots I sell in sets of 3. Garden stakes I sell in sets of 5. A lot of bowls go in sets of like 4. Same with wine glasses. So, And then, oh my God, and then those mise en place bowls, I sell three mise en place bowls for $10, and I sell a ton of those.
Right.
So I'm like replenishing those by the hundreds, and then, like 50 to 100. My assistant actually makes them probably every other week, and she makes about 100 of them. And so I would probably,
that's what I was gonna ask.
I'd probably say that I sell about 200 pieces a weekend, but they're all small. They're all tiny. So
okay. Yeah.
But the little monies add up.
Yeah, they definitely do. And you said your assistant's helping you make some of those. Mm-hmm. You said what'd you call them?
Mise en place.
Mise en place bowls?
MISE, new word, EN, new word, PLACE. It's French. And I think that it means everything in its place. They're like little bowls to like prepare all your stuff, but mine are super wonky. And so they're like just fun little trinkets. Never underestimate the power of a small bowl.
Yeah. I need to make some of those.
Yeah, you do.
I need to make some pinch pots. I throw only shot glasses off the hump, but I could probably start making some of those at some point. I don't know. Another thing on the list to make.
The small bowls are like super good. Super, super good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I am building up kind of a reliability for those smaller items that give me consistency. Since changing the price on my shot glasses, they haven't sold as much, but
yeah, me too.
I'm making more on them, so I think that's kind of the point, right? You're going to sell fewer of them at a higher price. So
here's a question: do you think that having a really good sale day increases your motivation?
Yeah, I think, trying to replenish and meet the demand of something that just sold. Like this past weekend, I sold maybe 6 or 8 oil bottles, and they were like good. And then at the second day of that second show, like people were like, "Oh, I wish I could have." Or actually, the first day, I didn't bring as many as I should have, or I could have, and I could have probably sold 2 or 3 more. And I was like, oh, man, I wish I had more of them here.
And panic sets in. You're like,
and I was like, dang, I could have made an extra, $60 or whatever. No, and it could have just added that little something extra to the show.
Oh, I wish you would have had these. Oh, do you have any other color?
Yeah, exactly. And there's only so much, you just got to make those decisions based on what show you're at. And you kind of get you learn as you go what shows kind of market to what price point and what you think is going to sell well. So you just kind of make your best judgment and see what happens. I always bring way too many mugs. I was at a table, 6-foot table, and I brought 3 boxes of mugs. I'm like, I'm not going to sell 50 mugs. Why am I bringing 50 mugs?
I'm so low on mugs right now. I'm so low on mugs and wine glasses. I really need to get out and make some mugs.
Yeah.
I feel like I have unlimited shelving right now. So that's been a struggle for me, is that I made these massive shelves. They're 8 feet long and they're a foot wide.
So something I do that I think has helped with so we talked about it a little earlier about having pieces that kind of rely on your attention day to day, and something that you can totally do in your studio, maybe not yours, but whoever out there that's listening that needs something in their studio, make a damp box or 2, because that's a way that, I kind of got this from Jason Burnett that talked about it a while ago. He has a couple damp boxes. He puts stuff in them overnight, or he leaves them in there for weeks on end, and you could put some mugs in there. And hey, if you like making mugs and you want something to, get you going in the studio, give you a quick win and feel like you're getting something accomplished, put some mugs in a damp box for weeks on end and just take out a few of them and get going.
I still have mugs in a damp box. I'm pretty sure they're probably disintegrated by now. They've been in there for about 2 months. I forgot about them.
Yeah. So
we just made a damp shelf in our studio.
A damp shelf?
Mm-hmm. So,
what is that? Just a really thick plastic around it?
Kind of. I got this metal shelf that's like got cubbies in it, and I got 3 of them, but I only really needed like 1. And what I did was I put that clear vinyl on the top, and we're gonna put magnets on the side, and it's like the perfect size to fit a bat inside. And you don't really, and it's not like a long-term damp box, you know, like a damp box you put plaster in so it keeps the moisture in. This is like, you know, one that at least you can put in and then come back maybe 3 days later, 4 days later.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty stoked about that. I find that like new stuff like that in the studio, or like trying new things, that's almost the most motivating thing for me. When I was doing word mugs, I was constantly trying to figure out a better way to make the screens and to print the words, and like trying to figure out the fastest way. And sometimes I would get on this like tangent and play for like 3 hours, but that always motivated me to like make more stuff.
Yeah.
And to figure it out. I think tests are really good for that.
Yeah. I did start, so I started making a few teapots, when was it? Over the weekend maybe? I don't know. I kind of lost motivation now to finish them though.
Then don't. I think that
I've got them there, and I'm like, I've got the body forms. I've got a few spouts that are already made, but some of them are drying out. Spouts aren't a big deal. I can make a few more spouts. I do have the lids ready, but they need to be trimmed, and like I've got a couple per body. I should have just probably focused on just getting one of them made. Yeah. I made 4 bodies and, 8 lids and like 7 spouts, and it's just a lot. And I was like, oh, I've got this clay and I'm ready to go. Like, it's the amount I need to make some. And I was like, let's get started. I had a goal to make a few teapots this year, because I don't normally make them because I don't like all the steps that goes into it. So they're just kind of sitting under really thick plastic for the last like 5 days probably. And yeah, I've kind of lost the motivation.
I've never made a teapot that I liked. So I don't make them.
Yeah.
I just buy them if I need to. I think it's important to make things that you want to make, right? That's what we lose. I know as a production style potter, that's something that you lose. I'm lucky in the fact that I really like making the things that I have to make the most of. You know, like I really like making pinch pots. I really like making wine glasses. I like making the body of mugs. You know, I like making certain things over and over and over again. But when I'm making stuff for an order and I'm like, God, I don't want to make this, it just like squashes everything that makes me want to finish. I hate glazing. That's where I like hit the
you hit a wall.
If I had somebody to glaze every single piece for me, I'd be in hog heaven. If I could just make and like throw and and then somebody else glazes everything. Oh my God, that'd be amazing. I'd like to get to that point.
You kind of collaborate with Andrew, right? In your studio, you make a bunch of does he glaze them?
He does glaze them, yeah.
Okay, so you get to make a lot of pots, but you still have a lot of inventory that you have to glaze personally, because it's not the same as all of that work. Do.
I've actually been really lucky this year, and I had a lady that came in and wanted to do work share with me, like work trade, and she ended up glazing most of my stuff, and it was great. It was awesome. And that was super, super motivating for me. And then I actually recently lost her. Like, she got a full-time job, and so she's not coming in regularly. And I like tanked. I'm getting back up there, but I tanked. And then Andrew actually said that he'd help me glaze on Tuesdays. So I'm lucky, you know, my best friend, he uses half of my, not half, like a quarter of my space to pack and ship stuff out. And so we kind of like trade a little bit.
Right. Yeah, I think you hit a good point about focusing on what you like to do and like offloading or outsourcing the things that you don't like to do. I'm a huge proponent of that, especially when I have only 6 or 7 hours a night for a select number of days. Like, I have to enjoy what I'm doing, or else I'm just going to like feel like I'm obligated to do all these things that I hate doing. So that's when I started paying an assistant to come wedge clay for me and mix glazes. That's kind of the extent of what she does for me.
Yeah.
But I think it's totally worth the money. And especially when I'm not relying on that money to do other stuff for me. Like, all that money that I make goes back into the business account, and it doesn't go anywhere unless it's paying for expenses. So I'm more than happy to use that money toward making me more efficient and actually just focusing on making a lot of work.
Yeah, totally.
So.
Yeah, I just recently had like 750 pounds of clay that was kind of like not great. And I just like, yeah, instead of me pugging all of it, I just asked a friend, her daughter came over and she pugged like 500 pounds of it. And I was like able to do other things. And yeah, I think that as artists, it's such an emotional thing. Like, I don't have this and you don't have this, but this is my assumption that when you're an artist, you're so emotionally attached to your product and to the entire process. And so maybe you feel like you're not doing the whole work if you're like paying somebody else to do part of it. Like,
right. Like, how can you put your name on that if you're not doing all of the work?
Right. And that's also another reason why I've never used, you're different than me, but I've never used my real name as my business name. My business name is 5 Lines Pottery. And that means that 5 Lines can incorporate anybody I want it to be. You know, like my assistant makes all of the mise en place bowls. She also makes a majority of the garden stakes. But I'm instructing her and I've taught her how to do that. I think that it's really hard for artists to let go of the not important things. And I think that's also when the bridge between when you're an artist and when you become a business, you know, that's a business
right
practice is designating work for different people. And when you're an artist, like, it's all of you, you know. But, you know, I think especially in clay, I see this up at the park because there's a ton of painters and a ton of photographers. And then there's clay and then metalworking and jewelry. So metalwork, jewelry, and clay, we all have to do pretty much the majority of our work by ourselves. The metalwork he has stamps, so he can stamp out everything, but he still has to put everything together. The painters and the photographers, they use printers, and they're still considered artists. You know, they use printers to print all of their prints. And here we are doing everything by hand. It's like, it's not fair. That's not fair. Why can't I pay somebody to do the job of a printer? You know, like, why can't I pay somebody to do something that a 12-year-old could do, but everybody loves it? Why can't I pay somebody? That's like, seems completely normal, you know? But it's taken a while for me to get to that point.
Yeah. But I think there's so many parts of the ceramic process that there are things that you can offload that don't take the creativity and the individuality out of the thing. Like, you don't physically have to load the damn thing in the kiln and out of the kiln. Somebody else can do that. And nobody's going to know the difference. Somebody can wedge your clay for you. Somebody can mix your glazes for you. Somebody can glaze them for you as long as they're doing them kind of to the results you like.
Somebody can do your pottery, social media for you.
Exactly. I mean, it may not come out as your exact voice and what you want portrayed. It's hard to say, like, I want this specific thing portrayed. But if they're just doing it to get your work in front of people to see, and the voice of the captions and stuff is not that important to you. I mean, there's businesses that have teams of people that run all that they do. So, like, being one person, focus on what you like. I like the documenting process, so I'm going to put a lot of focus into that, and then making pots, and, like, I don't like other areas of it, so I'm going to offload that.
Right.
Like, I hate photography and I mean, I like it for having content for social, but, like, I'd rather do stuff raw and not, like, posed or, like, all that kind of thing that makes it less authentic.
Right.
So I'm trying to make that work for me a little bit in the future with doing photography for listings, but not staging it with, like, a gradient or a tabletop that looks all posed, because I hate that part of it.
I think we had talked about, didn't we talk about maybe you doing just like holding out a piece in front of the kiln like you do your normal stuff?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. That's how
And I wonder if that's
a lot of people do it that way.
Resonate with. Do they? I don't know if I've seen that much with them in front of the kiln. I see them holding it, like, outside where it's
or like in front of a wall or something.
Yeah.
Which
and also it gives you
scale.
Thing. It gives you scale. There's not a lot of scale if you're just looking at it on a tabletop or a gradient, unless you have, like, a tea bag.
But if you're holding it, that's scale.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm going to try and do that, and, like, I am not motivated at all to take photos, so I'm not going to do it unless I find ways that I can offload it and not feel guilty about not doing that part of the process, because there's plenty of things to do.
I think that's, I mean, I honestly do not think that you can have a good quality of life and a successful business if you are doing absolutely everything yourself. I don't think it's possible.
Or else
your business will either be cut short, or
how do you keep up unless
I don't know.
Unless you're just so well known and so in demand that your price allows it. But that's super rare.
Yeah.
Right?
Super rare.
Yeah. All right. Anything else we want to talk about for the motivation stuff? Actually, there is one more thing that I was thinking about that I learned from Jason Burnett's workshop that I took here about a month ago. It kind of relates to offloading, and he really loves the decorating process. So he was paying people per piece, like $1 per piece, and he was having some folks that were good wheel throwers, and he doesn't enjoy that part of it, so he was offloading it, paying them per item, paying them well, and as long as they met his specifications,
right?
Does it matter at that point that the piece underneath the decoration, the whole thing is decorated, so you're not going to know that piece was thrown by him or not. That's where I'm kind of like in the fuzzy area. Like Rebecca Graves probably does this for some of her stuff, where a lot of her pieces might be thrown by other people.
Oh yeah, she's got
is everything that's Graves Co-Pottery or Rebecca Graves Pottery, or is it all thrown by her?
No, it's it's her company, which I like have again. They're your printers, you know. They are the people that they're your designs, but they throw them to your specifications. I would say that most extreme production potters have potters that work for them, and that's 100% okay. Also, like a ram press, that's 100% okay too. And if you're listening and you don't know what a ram press is, it's basically a pressurized press, and it like has two plaster molds, and they push together, and you put clay in it, and then it just comes out, and it basically falls out. Somebody who's has some videos on it is East Fork Pottery, and I think they're like the coolest thing in the whole world. But you can use your original design in a plaster mold, and it'll come out the same every single time. I mean, that is a printer. It's a printer of your work, and there's nothing wrong with it. Nothing.
Yeah. There's so much to do in this medium. Why bitch about people that find ways to be more efficient and sell and produce more work? Like,
Yeah, like you shouldn't
It's
be
like,
getting
why?
mad at the people that are good at business. For,
Yeah,
the people that are great at business for succeeding. No, that is something to be celebrated. Yeah, if you can figure out a way to shortcut or cut a corner without cutting your quality, then more power
yeah.
to you.
And if there's a demand for it, you're just meeting the demand. I mean, if you're enjoying what you're doing and you're satisfying what the customers want and stuff like that, I mean, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. All right.
Well, I
we
think
should
we're
probably
done.
wrap up here. Thanks of you all for listening, and we'll see you all next time. Hope you have a good day.
Yeah.
And
cool.
Yeah, we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Bye. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to our podcast. You can reach Ryan at @RDCeramics on Instagram and me at 5 Lines Pottery Studio on Instagram. We look forward to continuing this podcast and we are having so much fun. I hope you continue to listen and remember to share it with your friends.